This is a video I've been meaning to take for a couple of weeks now since the past performance gate or vets list gate, whatever it is, has come to the attention of the horse racing world where the custom past performances have veterinary information. And I try to stay in my lane. I can't really speak to that, the leak or anything like that, but I have dealt with the administration of state veterinarians and how they do their job and how they execute their duties and how they view the rules and stuff like that. You guys might know that I was an official in Mountaineer for some 36 years. I was doing that a long time before I took over doing the TV show, which of course I'm a lot better known for. And I have dealt with a lot of state veterinarians. And behind the scenes, I have seen how these things work, and they don't work at all as smoothly or as expeditiously as the average player might believe. As a matter of fact, it's kind of like sausage being made. It can be a holy mess or an unholy mess behind the scenes. So I'll just kind of get started out here and let you guys know. First off, an assistant racing secretary deals with eligibility of all sorts, weights, eligibility as per the race heading, and beyond that, you're kind of the last catch when the entry comes through the Encompass system as to whether the horse is on some kind of a list somewhere and thus prohibited from running. Okay? One list might be the paddock list, which is inconsequential, which a lot of times you don't even look at or pay attention to if you need the entry, to be honest about it. But some of the lists that you better pay attention to, because if a horse slips through the cracks, somebody could get hurt. And that is the starters list, because starters are very protective of their crews. And if they put a horse on the list, then they darn well mean for the racing office to honor that. But the granddaddy, the Mac Daddy of all lists is the vet's list, because the vet's job is to protect the health of all the horses and the jockeys. And that is serious stuff, babies. You don't want to miss that. Unfortunately, the vets are humans, and a lot of times they're very arbitrary behind the scenes, if not outright capricious. Plus, they're human beings in the administration of their duties. A lot of guys that do what I did at Mountaineer for a long, long time, assistant racing secretary / racing secretary at times, will cajole and beg state veterinarians, give me a break here, let the horse go, or pretend they didn't notice the horse was on the list. I never did that just to get a single entry, because what's going to happen if you get somebody killed or somebody injured or a jockey becomes a paraplegic and a horse perishes? Just was never worth getting one horse for me. But I've heard horror stories of other racing officials that just pushed the envelope and pushed it all they could. In a lot of instances there, most horses, many horses, I should amend that to say, have been on the vets list at one time or another. I mean, race horses run in a world of pain, and they have physical issues, a lot of infirmities behind the scenes. And I would say maybe half of all horses have been on the vets list at one time or another. Yeah, I would say that is the case. And the state veterinarian is the god of the racetrack. It's not the stewards. It's not the general manager. It's not the folks that own the racetrack. It is the state veterinarian. They have absolute power in all instances. And it used to drive me batty at Mountaineer when my crew would antagonize the state vet, because I would tell them, you're just making my life much more difficult by antagonizing the state vet. Just think of the state vet as your god, is the god of this racing program, because their power is invested in them by the state is just totally absolute. Now, it might sound simple. A horse is either on the list or it's not. Period. Elf and E, end of story. Oh, but it's not. Oh, it's not. It's really messy, and it can be very arbitrary. And a lot of vets make it very difficult to interpret their wishes when it comes to horses that they put on the list or don't put on the list. For one thing, it didn't used to be this way. When I started out as a racing official, the stewards list and the vets list were two separate things. If the stewards put a horse on the list for poor performance or some administrative reason, it had nothing to do with the vets list. And we would gleefully ignore the stewards list from other jurisdictions. Can't do that anymore, because now they get cute, the stewards. And any horse they put on the list for poor performance or whatever administrative reason is also assumed to be on the vets list, which really changed the landscape. So now we had to honor and had to respect their wishes. And I want to give a quick disclaimer here. I never worked at a HISA track. Mountaineer non-HISA. So that certainly changed the landscape that I dealt with for some 36 years. But maybe not a whole lot in all instances, because I dealt with a lot of HISA tracks that we had to get in contact with and go back and forth with on vets list issues. And even Mountaineer at times kind of gave us a directive that they sort of a little bit half-assed wanted us to observe HISA regulations and dictums, whatever that was supposed to mean. It was really arbitrary and it was really confusing. But whatever the case, here are some of the inconsistencies behind the scenes and reasons that vets made me pull my hair out years ago, absolute years ago. For one thing, when they put a horse on a list, let's say a 10-day list, it might sound simple, right? 10 days is up, the horse can enter and run. Except, oh no, it was never that simple. Because one vet may have intended, and I'm not going to name any names here at all. One vet may have intended 10 days to mean 10 days, with the next day is day one. Another vet, and this is like the age-old dilemma at the dawn of time, was the first year zero, or was it year one? I've even dealt with idiotic state vets that wanted to count the day the horse went on the list as day one, which is just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, which means a 10-day list is actually a 9-day list. And I've also dealt with state veterinarians, and again, they're the god of the racing programs. And I'm not going to name any names. I've dealt with a lot of them. And I'm not restricting this to Mountaineer. I've dealt with a lot of veterinarians from other jurisdictions too in the course of my duties running the racing office at Mountaineer for more than 3 decades. And you got to remember, as an assistant racing secretary, when an entry crosses my desk, the buck stops with me. If there are any ambiguities at all about whether to accept an entry, then I get the final say. Okay? I wish the vets were always around, but they're not. They consider themselves like doctors. Try to call your doctor sometime when you need a prescription. The doctor's not going to answer you at home. And in most cases, neither are the state vets. They do consider themselves, in a lot of instances, just a little bit above the whole deal. And they feel, and rightfully so, I guess, they deserve their time off as much as anybody else. But it doesn't help you when you're taking entries in the trenches and you need a ruling from a state vet. And when we get back to the counts, day one, day two, and stuff like that, some state vets, when they put a horse on, let's use the 10-day period again, they may intend for the horse to be entered before the 10 days is up to run on the 11th day. Others want you to wait until the 10 days pass, and then a horse can be entered. I've even known state vets that would come past the 10 days and count the next couple of entry days and try to give a horse 14 days or 17 days based on your entry schedule to try to sneak it in there just a little bit. So much of it, to my experience as a racing official, calling the shots in a racing office was completely arbitrary and gave me gray hair, and then finally made me pull my freaking hair out, because this is serious stuff. You're talking about the safety of human beings, the jockeys, and about the safety of the horse, the equine athlete. Some other inconsistencies. A lot of vets just simply don't take care of business in an expeditious, professional manner. I've seen instances where a horse would pull up on Saturday night and the trainer runs to the entry box and throws the horse in Sunday morning before the state vet gets a chance to even put the horse on the list. I've seen it happen a lot of times where 2 or 3 days later, the horse has still not been put on the list and the horse had pulled up, to which the state vet, when the mistake is finally exposed or when it finally gets caught, will simply say, hey, I'm a human being. I'm besieged by work. All true. All very, very true. But it helps to add to the muddled waters behind the scenes when it comes to the administration of veterinary rulings and the way the vets go about their business. And also, and this one drives me bonkers, absolutely bonkers for years. I threw some epic fits in the racing office over this when they simply did not take horses off the list when they should have. And it's not always a matter of a time period or a matter of days. Sometimes on the Encompass box that has vets list, you drill down a little bit deeper into the system. I wish I had an entry here to show you guys, but sometimes it will specify must be examined. And when God says the horse has to be examined, well, baby, the horse has to be examined, except we don't know when the horse has been examined. And this leads to very murky waters because, again, the busy veterinarians don't always, and I'm not talking about uniformly across the board, they don't always take care of their freaking business. Many times they'll examine a horse, okay the horse verbally to the trainer, and not let us know or go into the Encompass system to take the horse off the list so when the entry is made, it doesn't get flagged coming across my desk. So the way I used to term it, it's big fun to put horses on some kind of a list and exercise authority. It's not so much fun to do your due diligence and go into the freaking computer and take the horse off the list after the horse has been examined. Understandably, this would put us, moi, in the crosshairs of irate trainers that would call and complain up and down. The vet, he or she, took me off, gave me a verbal okay to enter. So at times I would say to the state veterinarian, maybe a veterinarian that I knew freaking well, was absent-minded and didn't take care of their business in the manner that they should. Do you want me to kind of take their word for this to cover you a little bit if you forget to let the racing office know that a horse has been removed from your list? And always the response would come, well, you just have to know whether or not they're telling you the truth. So now I'm supposed to be a freaking human lie detector with the safety, with the lives of horses and jockeys at stake. It's not like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I stay in my lane and I speak to what I know. And I think a lot of players, since vets lists have recently been in the news, are under some illusion this is all cut and dried behind the scenes, or it's simple, and it's not. Again, the all-important disclaimer, I'm not going to name any names or single out any specific vets, nor am I necessarily talking strictly about mountaineer vets, okay? Nor did I work at a HISA track, but I will repeat, lots of similarities between non-HISA tracks and HISA tracks, and the particular non-HISA track that I worked at in a key position for a long time, sort of, kind of issued us directive to kind of half-ass go by HISA rules as well as their rules, which was really difficult, just almost impossible. Also, it's customary for state vets to have us accept an entry if it slipped through the cracks in another jurisdiction. In other words, let's say a horse was on a vet's list somewhere and they missed it at another racetrack. Once the horse is run, since being put on the vet's list, even if technically it's still supposed to be in jail, then the horse is okay. All is forgiven. At this point, we're supposed to accept the entry. And it used to make me very queasy and very uneasy to keep accepting entries on horses that were still technically on a vet's list somewhere. But it managed to slip through the cracks at another track and run. Very, very difficult. Also, state veterinarians are human beings and they miss things. Believe me, just like anybody else, in the execution of their duties and job, they miss things. Watch after a race sometimes when horses come back to be unsaddled after they pull up. A lot of times if a horse is lame or really bad or really off, as they say, the jock will kind of force the horse to hit kind of into a gallop because at a jog, the lameness shows up. And what they're trying to do is fox it by, to smoke it by the state vet. Well, let me tell you, baby, sometimes they don't have to, because I have known of state vets who would get so busy having a deep conversation with the person next to them that they missed things. They didn't pick up on every single horse in the race when they came back after the race. And maybe a horse should have been on the list and the horse never got put on the list. And then you come to the sticky wicket of different policies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In other words, interarticular injections and stuff like that. And again, I was at a non-HISA track, okay? But as far as the injections and stand down time for certain medications go, the policies varied when I was in charge of a racing office from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And baby, you better believe it got really confusing as to whether we were supposed to accept an entry on a horse, and it was listed clear as day on the Encompass entry that a horse had been injected X amount of days ago, and theoretically would still be on the vet's list. Except when we would talk to the state vet would say, well, we don't have a stand down time here for that kind of injection or for that kind of medication, but they do at the other jurisdiction. So what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to accept all those entries? Or again, are we supposed to be mind readers? And then we come to the stickiest wicket of all, favoritism. And I'm not talking about necessarily on the part of state veterinarians. I'm talking about on the part of the racing office, because we're human beings too. Let me give you a good for instance. Let's say we take an entry or a couple of entries from a guy who's in Ohio or a guy who's in Kentucky or New York, and bang, the horse is on a vet's list. Okay? Needs to be examined by the state veterinarian. Okay? I can't accept the entry because, again, the veterinarian's list is sacred. You don't accept an entry if a horse is on the vet's list, and you know it. Except in so many instances, I can freaking well tell, and I'm not a human lie detector, but I've dealt probably with more thoroughbred horse trainers than almost anybody in America in the course of my duties as a racing official for some 36 years. And you get a real good feel for who's lying to you and who's being upfront and is being straight with you. And so many times I could tell they were being honest when they would say, yeah, it was just kind of a cut, or the horse ran down real bad. And I know it would be okay if you took the entry. I'm personal friends with a vet, as a matter of fact. Okay, this is where the sticky wicket starts, because then the trainer makes it their mission before we close entries to contact the state vet at another jurisdiction and browbeat, kowtow them, harass them into okaying the horse, which in many instances, because state vets are human beings, and a lot of times there is a little leeway in their positions on stuff like this. And sometimes the trainer was being honest to begin with that they had received a verbal okay. But again, we're not mind readers in the racing office. We're just not mind readers at all in the racing office. So it got really confusing about whether I was supposed to exercise my best judgment, about whether the horsemen were being honest in their dealings with me. And to make it even worse, I've told more than one state vet, listen, I'm doing my best here with dozens and dozens of entries flying across my desk in rapid fire fashion. And you are on time constraints as an assistant racing inspector to check entries when they come across your desk. You're kind of doing it rapid fire, as quick as you can. Bang, 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 because you got to get the overnight out expeditiously. Okay? So I have told more than one state vet, if I miss a horse that's on your list or is on a list in another jurisdiction, trust me, I did not do it on purpose. Believe me, I did not do it on purpose. And you got the power to scratch the horse when you smoke through the entries at your leisure later on, or when I look through them, when I back check for weights and eligibility. Okay, most vets get a little prickly about that because when they don't take care of their business, well, you know I'm busy. I'm just completely besieged, and it's no big deal because I can simply scratch the horse now after the horse got past me. But when it gets past the racing office instead, there's going to be hell to pay in cases like that, just absolute hell. And what about a guy that calls up, okay, and tells me the vet told me the horse is okay to enter, okay? And I tell him, I'm not a mind reader, buddy. And the vet told me, don't take anybody's word for anything, which the vet really didn't say because they did expect me to be a mind reader. But I would tell that trainer, okay, excuse me, kind of thirsty. I can't accept the entry. I simply can't accept the entry. And what if that trainer dutifully says, I appreciate your position, sir, and I'll take care of it before the next time I enter the horse, and just kind of slinks away with his tail between his legs in a respectful manner, whereas one of his brethren just raised holy hell in the same situation and kept on and on and on and on and on until he somehow got a hold, and how they do it, I have no idea, of the vet and authority at another jurisdiction. So it's just a mess behind the scenes, vets lists. And again, I'll give my disclaimer. I was not working at a HISA track, and I'm not naming any particular veterinarian. They do their best. Most of them are extremely competent, but they're human beings too. And it is just rarely cut and dried behind the scenes to sit there in the racing office and say, okay, This horse is good to enter. This horse is not good to enter because shit happens. I'm going to repeat, when it comes to the interpretations of the desires of the most erstwhile, well-meaning, professional, dutiful state veterinarians, it gets confusing and shit happens. I'll show you where I think some shit happened while we're on the topic. Give me 1 second here, please. Take a gander at this horse's form. Capralova. This is the horse that Oswald Pereira went down on. Okay, you can see where the horse had pulled up twice in a row before coming to Mountain Air and going down and putting an end to Oz Pereira's career. Now, it wasn't his last ride because the infamous Mr. Pereira reportedly, after he tried to torch his spouse's house, fled from the cops in a mock-up of General Lee at a faster clip than the Dukes of Hazzard. He outdrove Luke and Boduke, both put together. So this horse wasn't his last ride, but it was his last thoroughbred ride. I'm pretty sure, the infamous Mr. Oz Pereira. And you look at that and you see where the horse pulled up twice at Penn National. And you got to wonder, how in the world was this horse able to run at Mountaineer after 2 pull-ups in a row? And the consequences were beyond tragic. Absolutely beyond tragic. Okay? So I'm doing the show next to McMichael then in the studio. And since it's my job in the morning to pick up on things like this when they come across my desk, if horses listed on the vets list, let's say at Penn National in this instance, and I know that he's been badly hurt, a horse has perished, and there's been a tragic, tragic spill out of the racetrack. There's no interest like self-interest, baby. So the first thought that goes through my head is, how in the world did I miss this crap? How in the world did this entry get past me that is certainly on the vets list at Penn National? I jumped up like a jack in the box and ran downstairs like Ben Johnson, like Carl Lewis, taking the steps 4 at a time to get down to the racing office, went running back to pull out the entries, which we call the originals. And when I pulled the entry out on Capralova for that fateful occasion, there's never been human relief like I felt when I saw the horse was not on any kind of vet list. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Mother Mary. Because can you believe what deep, deep soup I would have been in had this horse been on some kind of vets list and then went down like that? And this is the kind of anxiety that I lived with on a daily basis as a racing official and dealing with vets list issues. And there are parts of my job that I miss, but dealing with vets list is not one of them. Just absolutely not one of them. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I didn't name any names. I have much respect for state veterinarians, but I just thought I'd shed a little light on how these things work behind the scenes. Mark Patterson out.